Okay, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to check out something a little bit different, something I haven't done on the channel before. And this is Microsoft Flight Simulator X, and this is the Steam edition. So it's obviously a game that's a number of years old. I think it's around, 2009 maybe? But I still think it's probably the best flight simulator out there. I know a lot of the hardcore people are into sort of, Prepare 3D and even X-Plane 10, but I think for the sheer sort of number of add-ons and stuff you actually get for this game, it's definitely probably the best I've come across. So what we're going to do today is take a flight that I've actually taken a number of times over the last sort of 6 to 9 months. I'm actually learning to fly. I have been for quite a while. So, and I've actually just gotten a new sort of terrain pack for Australia, the Orbx Australia Sp4 pack. So I'm really actually keen to see how actually accurate or how many changes they've actually made to Hobart, because it is quite a small city. So Hobart is the capital of Tasmania, which is a state in Australia, which is where I live. And so it's only around 250,000 people, so it's a fairly small city, but it is the capital. So, and the initial sort of the default Flight Simulator X sort of terrain and stuff was really sort of lacking. So. I've got a whole bunch of add-ons and all that other kind of stuff as well, but I thought what we'd do is actually just sort of jump into it and get flying, and then we can discuss all that kind of stuff as we're going. So I think probably around a 45-minute flight, so there'll be lots of stuff to talk about, just me rambling on for a while. But yeah, so we will get started. So I'll just run through this fairly quickly, won't be anything too special. I may sort of delve into it. I mean, I know probably anyone's sort of played the game before. This is the A2A Simulations Cessna 172, so very popular model and a really good training plane, what I fly quite regularly at the moment. So I'm just going to run through the manual setup here, see how we go. I haven't actually been playing this Flight Simulator X for very long, so hopefully this works. I'm a far better pilot in real life, I assure you, than in this game. So any mistakes that I make, which will probably be numerous, please forgive me. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we'll turn the batteries on. There we go. We'll test the panels up there. That's all good. What are we going to do? So, shut off valves in, the fuel tanks for both, which is good. We've taken all the chocks and stuff off. Everything's fine. So what's the temperature outside? So it's only 12 degrees. So I think we may run through the fuel pump process. Just get a little bit of fuel into the engine. So when the spark plugs fire, there's something to ignite. So what we're going to do is, so fuel's out, yep, so that's all good. So might as well take on the beacon, put in the nav lights just to be safe as well, a little bit overcast and stuff. We don't really need them, but we'll chuck them on anyway. What else can we do? So we'll leave the avionics for later, and the trim and the flaps we can do later as well. So what we're going to do is just do the fuel pump here. So just turn the fuel pump on. So looking at the fuel flow there, put the mixture to rich until there's a stable flow, and that should be about it. We'll just bring that out halfway or 3/4 of the way, and just going to put the throttle in slightly as well. Radio, turn on the avionics, turn on our radios and our nav gear. Oops, which was already on. That's right, from a previous flight, so that's all good. And that should all be fine. Everything else should be fine. So that's all good, that's all good, that's all good. Alrighty, I think we're just going to give the engine a crank, so how we go. Hopefully there are no mistakes. There we go. First time lucky. I mean, it would have been surprised if there's any problems. So one of the big things about the A2A Cessna model is it actually is persistent. So each time you whatever basically you do. There we go. Basically, whatever you do within each flight, or if there's any damage done or something, actually carries over. And there's sort of a whole maintenance thing and stuff that you can do there. So, but I've only had about, I think, about 3 hours flight time in this model, so it's fairly brand new. Rightio. So, what have we got to do now? So we're going to set the flaps. We're just going to drop the flaps to 10 degrees. And it's going to set the trim. So you see the trim there. I've got it mapped to some of my joystick there. I'm just going to actually set this up quite high. So the Cessna has a really tendency to actually sort of skyrocket straight up on takeoff, especially in a really light flight like this one. So as you can see, we've only got one pilot, no passengers, no baggage, and only about 50% fuel as well. So just jump a little bit more fuel into there so they're even. Yeah, so basically it's a very, very light flight. So that's going to even add to, you know, make it even worse, basically. More likely that the Cessna's going to try and jump straight up in the air. So we're going to put a trim to make sure that we counteract that a little bit on takeoff, and we'll have to adjust that a little bit later on. So our radios and stuff, not going to be using the autopilot. We're not using any radio navigation because it's all going to be a visual flight for me because I know the area so well. And just going to jump into, so the tune is 118 100, so we're going to get that set up basically. And yeah, right. So I'm just going to say straight out, even though we're sitting on the runway.
Hobart ground, Cessna, November 727 Fort Hotel, request taxi for departing straight out with Quebec. Cessna, November 727 Fort Hotel, taxi holding point for runway 12, using taxiway runway.
So I'm saying actually to run, actually taxi short of the runway, but actually sitting on the runway, so. Yeah.
Taxi holding point for runway 12, using taxiway runway 12.
Yeah, so we can get a takeoff clearance for our VFR flight, so visual flight, and that should be fine. There we go.
Cessna, November 727 Fort Hotel, runway 12, ready for departure, straight out departure. Cessna, November 727 Fort Hotel, cleared for takeoff, runway 12, straight out departure, approved. Cleared for takeoff, runway 12.
Cool, done. So we'll leave the radio on there for the moment, just for a little bit of realism, and we'll turn it off later if we need to. Alright, there we go, it's a lot quieter. That's better. So I actually got the headphones in, so I'll just take these off for a minute. So you can see that's a lot louder, so I should leave these on, just for a little bit of noise reduction. Alrighty, so mixture. So we're going to take off quite soon, so I'm just going to put the mixture back in. So you won't leave the mixture on as a full rich if you're just idling on the taxiway or on the runway, because we'll actually foul up the spark plugs and we get a coating of oil over them, and they won't work as well. So that's why you do that. Just leave it sort of a bit of a lean mixture for a while. And I think everything else is good, so we don't need the GPS or anything. I'm just going to double check all the stuff here at the moment. I mean, this should all be fine. So temperature's coming up, which is good. Pressure's good. Fuel levels are fine. The EGT will come up once we get flying. Fuel pressure is fine as well, that should come up a little bit. Amps are being charged, which is good, and the vacuum pressure is also good. That will come up as well once we get moving. So I'm just going to run through, do the magneto checks quickly. So I'm just going to bump this up to around about 1800. There we go. And we'll just drop back to the left. That was hardly any drop off, which is good. And hardly any drop off there, which is good as well. Cool, done. Alright, so we're just going to drop that back a little bit. There we go, cool. Alright, so that's all good. So we're ready to head off. And you see a plane coming in, flying doctor. Looks like they're actually coming in, but we'll probably be able to avoid them. So just going to do a quick weather check. I don't think I've done this already, have I? No, I haven't. So wind 310 at 4 knots, so that's really light. Visibility 10 miles. Clouds few at 1579 feet.
Hobart Tower, Hotel, Quebec, Echo, is 11 miles.
I'm just going to turn that off a minute. And so we've got a few clouds at 1579, which is quite light, and then we've got a broken, which is a heavier layer at 11,000 feet. So I'm thinking we'll probably get to around 3,500 feet, and we should be able to get through this this level of cloud at 1579. There's a couple of planes coming in, and then we should get some really good visibility. No rain reported, and everything else seems pretty fine. So I'm just going to jump out. Oops, close that. And get rid of the menu bar. There we go. So I'm going to jump out quickly and show you this plane while we're here. So that's the little Cessna, for anyone who hasn't seen it. I should get a skin for it actually, but I only just sort of gotten it recently. So it's beautifully modelled, it really is. It's so well modelled. It's lovely. Alright, cool. So we're pretty much ready to go off. So anything I lack basically is track IR. So I'm using the mouse at the moment. I've got a hat switch on the joystick. And yeah, everything else should be good. So I've probably sitting here too long. We fouled up the spark plugs, but that's good. So I'm going to open up the engine and get moving. lift off. So you can see there the Cessna's coming right up way too quickly, so I probably still didn't have enough trim, which is fine, but we'll deal with that. So yeah, so that's good. So probably won't be too much looking around until we get set up. You actually see over there, sort of just off the left, just over the dash, see that sort of that cross there? That's actually Cambridge Aerodrome, which is actually where all the flight training, where I actually do my flight training. Yep. Which actually, yeah, so I actually fly out of there. So the one we just flew out of is Hobart International, so it's far, far bigger in real life. It actually went through a big, massive redevelopment over the last couple of years. So it's probably 10 times bigger than what it's shown in there. And then Cambridge Aerodrome, yeah, it's not too far away, and that's where all the sort of the all the training and stuff is done, and all the sort of the light plane activity comes from. So we're climbing well, raise the flaps, and we'll keep flying. Yeah, so we're just dropping back now because we got the trim set a little bit high. So we're just going to drop the trim back a little bit for the moment. So we're just going to keep flying out here towards the west, and then actually, so Hobart's out there over to the south over there, or more to the south I should say. So we'll get to that soon. So we're going to come around a little bit, so you can see that there. So you actually see some lightning. It looks like this could be a little bit of fun. So we keep climbing around about the high 70s. Starting to hit some of that turbulence there, hitting the 1500 meter mark, which we mentioned was the was where the clouds start. So we always get a little turbulence coming through the clouds. So we're trying to get above those. I reckon around 3,500. So it's also a pretty good level for the Cessna, because you won't have to do too much changes to the fuel mixture or anything like that. So as soon as you get around above 3,000 feet. Is when you actually have to start leaning out the mixture to get to start getting the engines running properly. So you actually see the cloud cover there, which we're just coming above now. Quite a light cloud cover. And this is actually using Active Sky Next, which is the weather generator or the weather model, and that's a really good one for anyone who's sort of new to the game or whatever. And see little planes coming in there. We're approaching 3,000 feet quite rapidly, which is good. We're just going to keep climbing to around 3,500 and we'll start leveling off. So we should start dropping back the engine now a little bit. And start bringing our nose down so we can level off. Alrighty, good. So you can see there we're above the cloud cover here. Still got a little bit of turbulence, but that's okay. Maybe it could be a little bit higher a little bit later, but we'll see how that goes. It's looking okay for the moment. So I'm just going to drop the engine back a little bit, still climbing too much. Should be fine, and we'll start bringing the trim down as well. So I'm actually thinking probably we'll stick around 4,000, because it looks like that cloud cover is a little bit heavier than I thought, a little bit longer. So I'm just going to bring the trim along so we start leveling out. There we go, it's a bit better. Yeah, so we'll stick around the 4,000 feet level. Oh, turbulence. Oh, good. Alright. So it's not amazing weather at the moment, really, for sort of a scenic flight, but it's not too bad, really. Alright, so we're pretty much leveled off, sort of still bumping around a little bit from the weather, or the wind I should say, but the turbulence, but actually I'm missing you probably noticed the middle stick, the middle control panel there, just so I can see all the buttons and stuff just down there, so that's why that's gone, but you can see what's happening on the right hand side. Any adjustments I make, you can see that it's not actually changing anything, there's still a fair bit of turbulence and stuff, still going to keep messing with the trim to get that sort of a fairly level, so you see there down on the left hand side. Actually, this half of the river is actually where I live. I actually live down there, and on the opposite side is sort of the main city. So you can see the Tasman Bridge there, the Arch Bridge, which connects the two halves of the main side of the city. And you see, it's all sort of very sort of open and really sort of lovely, lush terrain, especially in winter. We can see the snow on the mountains there. So I'm actually pretty impressed that the Active Sky Next has actually done that to actually generate that weather, because they're using live weather, so sort of today's weather. Still climbing very much. Just drop the trim back a little bit, and you need to mix with the mixture now. So just keep an eye on that, the EGT there, and also the revs. So I'm just going to pull this out a little bit. Watch the revs should stabilize. There we go. So you see that the needle actually stopped bouncing around. So there we go. I think that's around about the right level for us there, so that should be good. So probably a little bit high at the moment, so I may just trim down a little bit, and we'll start slowly dropping a little bit around about the... Actually, no, this is probably a good level actually. Not hitting any turbulence anymore, are we? So this is probably a good level. It's probably a little bit high though, but... Anyway, so what I'm running in terms of mods. It's actually quite accurate there. Yeah, it's heaps better. The Orbx Australia Sp4 is 1,000 times better than the default FSX terrain. Yeah, it's just so much more accurate. Just gets the even like the terrain textures and the mapping and stuff just far more realistic and far more likely what it is. And a lot of this, all these sort of this little industrial area you can see out in here, that's sort of really actually quite cool to have that mapped in. So just starting to turn around to the left, which is fine. Actually, sort of actually a natural turn by the wind. So I'm just going to actually let that happen because that's actually quite good for us. Still climbing a little bit much, so you just get to trim down again, starts coming down. I think about 4,500 feet should be right good for us. So just to make sure we don't drop too much here, but burning off a little bit of speed isn't a bad thing. We're actually running too fast at the moment. Oh, turbulence. Yep, all good. No stress, it's all good. Rightio. So you can see the Mount Wellington there on the right hand side. Yeah, so burning off way too much speed at the moment. So just gonna drop the engine back even further. So yeah, it's better. Starting to come down again. So I'm just gonna bump that up a little bit so I can maintain our height. So you see Mount Wellington there on the right hand side, which just sort of dominates, overlooks Hobart City. It's probably a little bit taller, although I guess it would be accurate in terms of height, but sort of in real life it sort of does really sort of overlook the city and really dominate, look down on the city there. So you mentioned seeing the Tasmania Bridge. I live over on the other side of the bridge. There's the Bond Bridge on the far left hand side there, the two bridges connecting the city. And sort of the main little area down there which we can see. Just bump up the engine a little bit, the speed, the revs, and mess with the trim. There we go. So you can see sort of just in between the gap of the I'm pointing actually by the way, in the gap of the dashboard and the sort of the edge of the cockpit there, that sort of white building right down the sort of bottom left, or sort of mid left. That's actually Rest Point Casino. Actually, really impressed they've actually got that in because it wasn't in the default FSX version. So. Yeah, so it's far more accurate. This the Orbx Sp4 has even got the all the road placements and stuff. I'm actually running the vector as well. So in terms of add-ons, I might as well run through that at the moment. So I'm actually running. So as I mentioned, running Orbx, and just gonna push the fuel mixture just back in a little bit. There we go. It's better. So we're running Orbx, the global base model, also running the vector pack, the Orbx Australia Sp4 pack as I mentioned, and also the trees, so the FTX, the HD Trees. They make a big difference, so especially doing a lot of like low level flying as I'm doing at the moment, really does make a huge difference in terms of how it looks, and get far more sort of dense forested terrain than you do in sort of the default FSX, FSX, it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Model. So yeah, so that's a lot better. So just going to push around a little bit. So the wind was coming from, I thought was it 310? So in terms that's why we're getting pushed around a little bit to the left. Although this Cessna does want to push to the left anyway, just the way one of its little quirks, but. It's actually sort of, it's all the wind. So we're coming down here, so actually sort of come over the city now, actually following the southern outlet down. So I actually work sort of down here, just near the, come back around again, just near the window lock there. I actually work sort of just down on that hill there, sort of overlooks the city. So actually following the southern outlet down here. This is coming down towards Kingston Way, Kingston and Margate. A lot of people live down this way as well. Sort of starting getting far more open down this way as well, as you can see. Into the distance it's sort of a lot more open and less sort of built up than the rest of the city. So yeah, everything's going pretty well at the moment. So we're getting a good speed, around about 110 knots, which is a good speed for the Cessna, just as a cruising altitude. Cruising speed, I should say. So trim's mostly okay. A little bit of adjustments here and there, sitting around between 4 and 4,500 feet, which is a good place to be at the moment. Sort of away from some of that turbulence, which is good. You actually see, so actually there's a golf course down there. You can sort of you see some of the bunkers and stuff. Actually, Northwest Bay Golf Club. Actually quite a good golf club if anyone plays golf. And you can see that sort of that spit of land on the horizon. That's actually South Arm. So on that sort of vacant, on the right and the left hand side, that sort of vacant spit of land, that's actually going to be a golf course as well. So it's only being built at the moment. So it's actually really nice down that way. Some really good beaches and really lovely area. I actually wouldn't actually mind owning a property down there one day, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so it is quite picturesque down this way. You see the rolling hills. So the Free Mesh X really makes a huge difference in terms of the actual look of the hills. Just makes it far more sort of accurate and far more realistic. Right, add-ons. So we've been through the Orbx, we've been through the Free Mesh X as I mentioned, running Rex 4 for the water, sky and cloud textures. And that's really good. So running texture direct with soft clouds makes a huge difference to the look of the clouds and stuff there. Just going to trim again. And what else are we running? So the A2A Cessna, which I mentioned. And that's pretty much it, I think. I think that's all I'm running actually. So I've obviously sunk a fair bit of money into the game. In terms of controls, I'm just running a Cytec X52 Pro, so obviously it's not as realistic as using the actual yoke and pedals, but for the moment I can't really justify spending that kind of money. But obviously one day I would like to do that if possible. So just keep coming down this way, so probably just keep coming down, and this island we see off the left hand side here, that's actually Bruny Island. So you actually get a ferry down this way. Get a ferry across, and Bruny Island's quite popular for a lot of like camping and things like that. It's a really nice, lovely spot to be down there. And yeah, so that's really good. Everything's going well. We're a little bit faster than speed, we're pushing up around 120, which is sort of a maximum. I don't really want to cruise any further, but I'm pretty happy to do that because I want to get don't want to have you guys sort of too bored on this flight, so you might as well push the flight. You can see the snow in the background. I think it's actually that much snow today. I think actually it's probably a little bit, a couple of days early. Meant to get a really massive cold front coming through, lots of snow. So actually most of this area we're actually coming across here will probably actually be covered in snow quite soon. So that should be interesting. So what I think we're going to do is we'll probably come across towards the southern tip of Bruny Island, and we'll probably cut across there. So we'll cut across the river. So the river left hand side there is the Derwent River, which actually connects out to the ocean and runs a fair way up through past Hobart and the northern suburbs of Hobart and up through that area. And yeah, so that's it's a very lovely river, very picturesque. And so what I think we'll do, we'll cut across the southern tip of Bruny Island, and then we'll probably cut across Port Arthur Way. I'm actually interested to see if there's any actually specific textures or auto-gen buildings for Port Arthur area. It's quite a famous sort of historic site. So it actually was a convict site when Australia was first settled, and was run as a convict prison basically for, I'm not sure actually quite sure how long, but I think from memory at least 100 years, I think you'd be pushing probably 150 years actually. And it's actually sort of, there's some really amazing ruins, not ruins actually, sort of basically restored buildings and stuff down there. It's really quite a cool place to be. So fix the trim, just dropping a little bit too much here. Running into some turbulence again. So thinking around the 4500 is actually a sweet spot for us. Just get above some of this turbulence, which we seem to be hitting the top end of. So shouldn't trim up a little bit. Just get our nose up and make a nice slow descent up. Descent up, I should say. Yeah. So it really is amazing. I mean, I flew this area with the default FSX terrain, and just I think the combination of the global base and the vector. I mean, I know they're expensive, so it was about $120 Australian, I think, for both of them, or if not more, 140 maybe. But like the global base sort of fixes a lot of the terrain, and sort of in terms of like the actual textures and things like that on the terrain. And then the global vector fixes like a lot of the roadways, waterways, and coastlines and things like that, which makes a huge difference for somewhere, as you can see, like Tasmania, like this. Whereas it's a tiny island, so the entire island is surrounded by water, obviously being an island, and also the fact that like this, where you've got massive major rivers actually running up through the centre of the city, along the capital city is built across like two sides of a river. So to have sort of correct coastlines and far more realistic coastlines is a huge thing to somewhere like Tasmania, like this, or Hobart. So I'm actually quite keen to actually do a lot of like cross-country flights along around Tasmania. So part of my pilot's training is actually doing a lot of cross-country flights around Tasmania, and even over to Melbourne as well, which would be quite cool. I'm actually quite excited about that, so that would be really, really good. So might as well talk about that at the moment, actually, while we're running across it. What's that spittle land across there? Interesting. I'm a bit lost, actually. It's terrible. Alright, so I think we might turn left, and we'll come across and come back around and basically follow the coast up. So maybe a gentle left turn over this way, and that'll be good because it'll burn off a little bit of height as well, so it'll be nice. Yeah, so in terms of pilot's license, anyone sort of interested in getting their pilot's license in Tasmania, or in Australia, I should say. So basically there's three levels, sort of three main levels of pilot's license in Australia. So the first is the recreational pilot's license, the RPL. That's the first level. Basically that's, I can't remember the exact specifics, so I think it's around about maybe like 20 hours flight time plus the theoretical written tests. And basically once you get that, you can fly solo, but you're actually limited to within 50 nautical miles of your home designated airport. So mine will be Cambridge Airport. So 50 nautical miles of there. So I'm actually like, I can fly around all around Hobart and down to Port Arthur and things like that, which is good. But in terms of going anywhere further than that, like north of the state, or flying anywhere else in Australia, that's not really possible. So then to actually remove those restrictions, the next level is the private pilot's license, so the PPL. Basically that's around about, I think the minimum is 35 hours flight time, but most people sort of seem to do it at around about sort of 45 to 55 hours in total flight time. So that's yeah, and that's actually when you do a lot of the cross-country stuff. So that's what I'm working through at the moment, so I'm about halfway through that. So you do a lot of like, a couple hour cross-country flights, a lot of, get more into like the actual sort of navigation side of things as well, and actually navigating on your own and things like that. So that's really good. And once you've actually got that license down, you can fly solo with passengers anywhere. So anywhere within Australia, actually. Your restrictions in terms of movements and distance are actually removed. So you can just basically go anywhere and do whatever you want, which I'm actually really excited towards. To actually start doing some flights around Tasmania and even over to the mainland and stuff once I get a little bit more experience and things like that, which would be really, really good. So flying over Bruni at the moment, and I swear this is Bruni. This must be Bruni. I'm a little bit worried what that thin beaches through there. I don't recognise that. That must be still be Brittany. No, that is still Brittany Island, I swear. I'm not sure. Anyway, no, this has to be Brittany Island because we came down past Huonville, and that's the area. So it has to be Brittany Island. Maria Island's a lot smaller than this. Yeah, alright, cool. Alright, so that's cool. So we're coming across the middle of Brittany Island, it looks like. As I mentioned, that sort of, you can see if I just move up a little bit, that's a little bit south arm there. It's just at the top of that window. On the left hand side, that little island there, that spit of land is south arm, very, very lovely area. And we're coming across down to the Tasman Peninsula across there, which is the land that we're actually going to come fly across to there. So I'm going to trim up a little bit, just losing a little bit of height. But we're cruising along quite well, around about 100 knots, so our speed has dropped a little bit, which is actually not probably a bad thing. And you can probably mess with the mixture a little bit, or fix the mixture I should say mess with it. Fix the mixture in a minute. So you can see it is very, like Tasmania is very, very picturesque, and it's really sort of untouched, which is why we had a lot like tourism here has really gone sort of through the roof in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Get a lot of tourists coming over here, and sort of is like such a unique, it's completely different to anywhere else in Australia, and as I mentioned, it really sort of is quite untouched in terms of the natural wilderness and stuff, and it's quite heavily, fiercely protected by like a lot of conservation groups and things, which is a good thing. Like it should be protected because it is so unique, and it's sort of one of our pretty much our biggest draw card that we've got here. So if we can get sort of more tourism and stuff we can get here, the better for the state. So it's a really good place to live. It's very sort of quite quiet, and there's a lot of freedom and stuff, and like I do love the big cities like Melbourne and Sydney and stuff, and quite enjoy visiting them, but it is really sort of the lifestyle down here is very sort of chilled out, but very sort of, there's a lot of really cool things that go on here, and like a lot of really good sort of, especially like the arts scene is very sort of thriving down here, and in terms of just like getting out and about, in terms of just exploring the state, there's so many places to explore. I've lived here for like 27 years now, and there's so many places that like I constantly like visit, and I'm like, I've never been here before, and this place is amazing, and it's just incredible to actually think that it's not a very big island. It's really quite a small island especially in terms of like the size of Australia, it's just such an amazing place to be. So highly encourage anyone who hasn't visited before to come down and check it out, especially if you love sort of nature and love bushwalking and love sort of some really amazing beaches up on the east coast, especially in summer. Like it doesn't get too hot. Like Queensland, the sort of far east, northeast coast of Australia is like really amazing, especially in winter. It does get quite cold in Tasmania. We're a long way south, so by far and away we are the furthest south southerly point in Australia. So it does get very, very cold, as you can see here. We're only sort of a month into winter, and we're getting a fair bit of snow and stuff already, so it's quite cold down here. But in summer, you sort of we get sort of the best of both worlds, I think, especially up on the east coast of Tasmania. It's a little bit warmer. Some really amazing coastlines, some incredible beaches up there, incredible national parks, and sort of on a really good day you'll be running at temperature wise you could be looking at sort of high 20s into the early 30s, which is like a really good warm temperature, but it's not too hot either. So up in like Queensland and stuff, you can get into like it's in mid to high 30s, and then that's just getting a bit ridiculous, and you can't really be outside for any length of time or anything like that. So I do think we get the best of both worlds. Really impressed. You see the water texture down there. Really impressed in the Rex 4 texture as well. I also have been running the FX water configurator, whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. It's basically sort of, you can do a whole bunch of preset changes on the water about how the water actually looks and things like that. But I'm actually quite impressed. It looks really quite realistic. So I did spend a fair bit of time running through the Rex textures to get sort of something realistic. But for today, what I've actually done is there's a really good feature on it. If you've never used it before, it's annoying me, the view. I definitely have to get track IR. It's going to drive me insane. So one of the really cool features on Rex 4 is the ability to actually basically what you can do is actually you can put in a location, a weather station or an airport, which is what I did. So I put in Hobart into the Rex 4 engine, and basically it brought up put up the weather settings for that day, and basically then it produces its own sort of whole bunch of textures, like what it thinks the weather would look like here based on all these types of settings and specifications and stuff, and then I just loaded that in, which is really quite cool. So it's a really good way to get some really good variety, and actually really is quite accurate. So especially the water, I'm actually probably most impressed in the water, because it's sort of ocean water, so you really get that sort of really deep blue, and we don't sort of have any real sort of any of the sort of the real light green or the really light blue. You get some sort of up in the east coast, but we don't really have any of that down here in Hobart Way. So yeah, so that's actually really quite impressive. So, and the sky as well, like we get that really blue sky, and it's actually done a really, really good job. So really quite impressed. So go Rex 4, you've done a good job. So as we're coming across here, down across the Tasman Peninsula, so it's really actually a cool little story. I should pull up a map actually, I might put a link or something into the thing. So the reason that Port Arthur was chosen, so Port Arthur's a fair way away still, but the reason that Port Arthur was chosen to actually have a convict prison down here was this entire peninsula we're actually flying across, or coming up to now. This entire area is actually connected to the rest of mainland Tasmania by basically I think it's around about 30 metres wide, like a spit of land. And that's this single land connection to the rest of the state. So what they basically did, they had this huge entire peninsula they could build a prison on, and they used to have like a lot of prison work camps in certain areas of the state. Like there was a coal mine which we're actually flying across now, and you sort of see, I'm not sure if you can actually see my mouse here, but sort of this area down here, there's actually a coal mine here, so which was a convict coal mine, and actually fed a lot of coal for Port Arthur and the rest of Hobart. So they could build all these amazing, or I shouldn't say amazing, they could build all these prison facilities on the thing, and they didn't have to worry too much about people escaping, because obviously it's completely surrounded by water. You can see there's nothing but water. It's way too far to swim for the vast majority of people, because we don't really have sharks, not really this close, but there are a few I suppose, but like obviously most prisoners back then coming from England and stuff, they couldn't swim. So there was no danger in them actually swimming anywhere, and then the only connection they had was a tiny spit of land, or little peninsula, whatever you want to call it, little connection of land that they could actually, which they actually did, they completely leveled it, so it was just like basically like a sand connection, and it was covered end to end with barbed wire, and there was guard posts at either end, and also had dogs there. So basically it was pretty much impossible to get across that peninsula, so there was really nowhere else for these people to go. So there obviously were, being a prison, a number of escapes, but I think they were all caught. I don't think there was anyone who ever actually successfully escaped, because there was basically just nowhere for them to go. There was quite an interesting history of sort of cannibalism actually by a number of the escapees and things like that, but we won't get into that too much today. So yeah, so it's really quite calm at the moment. So we've got the trim pretty much sorted. We're just flying nice and level, running around 100 knots in speed. We're above all the clouds and stuff, so which is good, so there's no turbulence. So it's a really smooth flight at the moment, so which is amazing. So as you see down here, it's really quite a picturesque place to come down here. So it's really quite beautiful. Lots of really secluded beaches. This is a largely uninhabited peninsula, so there's probably only a few thousand people on the entire peninsula. As you can see, it's a fairly decent size of land, piece of land. So some amazing cliffs and things as well coming down this way. So actually Tasmania is a state, if you want to look up, this is actually the Tasmanian Peninsula. You'll look at Port Arthur. So the actual Tasmania, rest of Tasmania extends a long way down the south. When you see them at the back of the window there, does it go a long way further south, right down to the South Cape, Tasman Cape, which gets really quite rough down there. And sort of the southeast, if you look on a map, the southeast of Tasmania down towards the south, and the south, southwestern portion of the state, so the sort of far southwest, is completely uninhabited. Like, in terms of there is not a single person that lives there, and it's a huge swath of land, and it's all sort of national park, and there's really amazing bushwalks and things like that down there, and it's completely uninhabited. It's completely wild. There is no development basically. There's some few bushwalks and stuff, some tracks and stuff, but they're sort of very in keeping with the area. And it's a huge portion of land that there's like no one lives there. And it's just, I don't know, it's just incredible to think there's such massive amounts of land in Australia that is just uninhabited, and especially in Tasmania, I think that like a lot of Australia is obviously uninhabitable. Like a lot of the middle portion of Australia, so that's why all the cities are located on the coast, obviously. But yeah, especially I suppose Tasmania, like pretty much all of Tasmania is inhabited, but vast portions of it aren't. It is quite sort of rough wilderness wires. You can trim down a little bit. But, you know, like sort of down here, like the Tasman Peninsula, there's some, you know, some decent sized farms and things, but it is pretty amazing. So, beautiful spots around here. So actually stay, if you see my mouse, hopefully you can, sort of just here between the strut of the plane. There's really some amazing little B&Bs, some old actual convict cottages down this way. So I actually stay down here with my partner a number of times. So beautiful, beautiful spots, some really amazing beaches and stuff down here. I think this is this, I think that's White Beach actually, from memory. I think that is White Beach. I think, no, I'm lying to you. I actually stayed on this portion over here, this sort of, this further, is it western coast, northwestern coast? Over this way, and I think this is actually further down, and this is, I think, yeah, this is actually White Beach. It's actually quite a popular holiday spot down here. A lot of people have sort of little shacks and cabins and stuff down here. They come during summer. And yeah, so that's quite interesting there. So really, really cool. So actually, sort of something that actually inspired me to do this a little bit was I actually took there was a seaplane tour company that actually ran out of Hobart. So had some beautiful old amazing seaplanes. I can't remember the exact models they were. I should remember actually. I should find out. And they owned some really amazing seaplane tours. And I did one with some of my family members, and it was down this way. So what they actually did was, actually maybe pull over this way and actually show you. So they basically flew down the river, and then basically sort of did what we did. They flew over the city, down the river, and then cut across here to Bruny Island Way, or across Bruny Island to the Tasman Peninsula. They flew in around this way, so actually flew around the cape around there. So actually sort of around the edge of the peninsula down there. So it does get quite rough. We actually had some pretty rough weather down there, which is quite exciting. They actually flew down there and actually flew in through the base. This is actually Port Arthur down here. So yeah, so they haven't actually got any specific text or anything for it. I'm not surprised really, but yeah. So anyway, so I'm just going to come across this way a little bit further. So where are we? Come across a little bit further, so we can see it out the corner of our window. Alright, so yeah, so Port Arthur's actually, it's actually a messed up texture there. So your road texture actually cuts out of the water. Yeah, Port Arthur's right here, down here under our wings. So actually Port Arthur sort of stretches around this bay here. So what it actually did was actually fly in and actually landed in the bay, right in here in this bay, so which was actually really quite an amazing thing to do. So it's actually one of the first times I've ever been on a seaplane, so this was like a couple of years ago now. And then actually sort of cacks into the jetty, and you actually see all the old convict buildings and stuff down there, and it really was quite amazing. So, and then they took off from the bay and then flew up basically where what we're going to do, but they actually sort of flew into Hobart, where we'll fly a little bit further north, and yeah, and then we'll fly back into Hobart Airport. So as I mentioned, like you see this whole area, there's a number of like convict works and stuff coming down here, and you know, as I mentioned, it's quite isolated. I'll show you this spot where this whole peninsula connects to the rest of Tasmania. But as you can see, it's pretty much, even these days, it's pretty much all wild. Especially this portion that we're flying over at the moment. As you can see, there's only a few houses dotted around the area, and most of it's pretty uninhabitable. So it does get very, very rough looking out over this cape. Hopefully you can see my mouse. Over this area over here, just over the right-hand top of the dashboard there, it does get very, very rough down in this area. So some crazy surfers actually go down there and try and kill themselves, but apparently you get some amazing huge waves down there. You actually get sort of a lot of big wave surfing actually right down in that peninsula down there. Yeah, so we're just going to come across here. I think we'll fly probably continue out towards the coast over the water, just so I can show you. We can see the coast and see the cliffs and things, and then I can show you the little peninsula thing that connects the entire, or the little spit of land that connects the entire peninsula, I should say. So you can see the moon there, which is quite a cool little feature. So, well, I mean, I know, like, FSX is obviously a number of years old now, as an engine, a game engine. I'm just going to drop a little bit, it's rising too much. So it is a number of years old, obviously, and like in certain areas it's not hugely amazing. But this is using the that's right. It's an add-on I forgot to mention is the DX10 fixer. So that gives you these internal cockpit shadows, which makes a huge difference, I think, to the sort of the immersion of it. So in the DX9 version, which is what sort of the standard version, there's none of these internal cockpit shadows. So it's but the reason that it was sort of never used in the initial version of the game was it had a lot of issues and a lot of sort of bugs and things, which is why it was sort of never used. But some amazing clever fellows, you can turn off the nav lights, you don't really need those. Some really clever fellow actually fixed all the DX10 issues, and yeah, made it really sort of compatible. You get a lot better frame rates as well, so like hopefully the frame rate's been okay. I'm running a really good computer, but it's only running around about 20 frames 20 frames here, which is a little bit low. I'm running at 30 at the moment because we're just heading out over the water, which seems to be a lot better in terms of frame rates. But yeah, that view is driving me insane. Alright, cool. So we're just going to swing a left. Let's make a nice 10-degree turn around here. Make sure we don't drop too much height and speed. Nice little leisurely turn around here. So there's a few houses down there. That'd be a quite cool, funky spot to live, I reckon. Actually, don't know what that is. I should find out. So one of the things I love about flying is you see all these places that you don't see often from the ground, and sort of you see them in ways that you don't normally see them either as well. So just gonna head out over this way. Just head out to the water just a little bit further, and so you see the cliffs. There's some pretty amazing cliffs down this way. So hopefully we can see those. Dropping a little bit of height, which is good. Let's going to have a little quick look at the mixture while we're hitting here. I think we're looking okay. Alright, so that's too far. You hear the engine actually changing there. And then coming in is also too far, so we should pull it out to about there. Yeah, that's where I had it anyway, so I didn't need to do anything. Awesome. Alright, so you actually see the first thing there. Hope you see my mouse. See that little spot there? That's actually the little spit of land that connects the peninsula. You can see it's tiny. It's not very long, but that was pretty much the entire reason they had the Port Arthur here where it is, was that little peninsula there. See some beautiful cliffs coming down there. So I think the Orbx, the global base, the Vector, and especially the Sp4. I mean, I think you can't really expect a huge much better from looking at that one. It looks incredibly rich. I know like some of the textures and stuff a little bit lacking here and there, but having such a detailed model here, which the A2A have done, you can actually see all the warnings and stuff there, and such a detailed airplane which they've done, which is just incredible. Having such a detailed airplane, the Rex 4 does amazing job with the sky and the textures and the clouds and all that kind of stuff. And then the Orbx just sort of finishes it off with some incredible and also accurate terrain, which just makes a huge difference in terms of the realism and stuff. So super impressed. It's well worth the money, I think, if you can really afford it. So I mean, you're probably looking around about $300 to get all that kind of stuff done, including like DX10 fixture, the Rex 4, or the Orbx stuff, the trees as well. I think trees do make a huge difference, especially for somewhere like Tasmania, which is such a heavily forested place. You sort of just get such a far more like realistic forest look. It looks like a forest there, whereas in the FSX it's a little bit too sparse, and it didn't sort of look like that dense forest, which is really what a lot of Tasmania is, that sort of, struggle to actually walk through kind of forest. Yeah, so I mean, you're probably looking around $300, I think, all up. That's not including like the actual game and plus a flight control system or a joystick, or if you want to actually go into the yokes and stuff. And that's when you're starting to get into some really expensive territory. But like if you're serious about flying, like I know like some of the guys I've come across doing my flight training, they regularly fly like FSX or X-Plane or anything like that, because they really are quite realistic, and especially like they use it as a training model to actually fly like some new new models of planes and things. Just get familiar with like the instrumentation and some of the quirks and stuff done. So if they know that like the A2As, they do such a good job with it, if they know that they've like got a really sort of realistic view of the of a plane, like a really realistic model, Like it's an amazing training tool, and you can do some really great like simulations in terms of weather and stuff like that as well, which is really quite cool. So like I don't think you can really expect much better than this, what we're running here at the moment. So very, very impressed. Alright, so I think we're seeing pretty much level. I'm just going to level out a little bit there, and height's good. So as I mentioned there, you actually see that little spit of land there. So that's what connected them. That's what was basically their saving grace. Obviously, the big thing was that a lot of people tried to get to this point and then swim across here quickly. So they did have a lot of patrols and stuff along this edge, because apart from that, if we sort of swing over this way, you can see that there's nowhere else for them to go. There's nowhere else within swimming distance they could actually get to. So it was actually this point was sort of the big point, and this is where a lot of the escapees actually sort of tried to come across. But as I mentioned, that because they had dogs and they had a lot of patrols, they actually cleared out a lot of this forest around here as well. There was nowhere for them to go. They just couldn't, you know, there was just no way for them to cross, and especially if you couldn't swim. It's difficult to actually swim across this kind of area without making any noise if you can't swim. Like, even if you do swim, it's like very difficult to do silently. So, yeah, so it's a pretty amazing little sort of quirk of nature that actually sort of allowed that entire, you know, prison system or prison development to actually happen. So, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, so that's really good. So let's go flying up this way. So we're a fair way away from Hobart Airport now. So we can just jump here onto the GPS if we want to have a quick look. So we're still flying up over the peninsula here. If we zoom out a little bit, that's in. Zoom out. So that's where we're going there, Hobart. So we're going to fly up here, and we're going to approach here from the east. So the runway actually sort of basically comes directly out sort of east to west. So we're just going to fly up directly north, or sort of directly east of it, and we're just going to fly straight in. It should be totally fine, so that should be good. Over to the left a little bit, so just going to correct that. And we're trimmed pretty well, which is good. No turbulence, everything's going pretty fine. Quite a smooth flight, which is good. So, yeah, far better day than what I thought it would be, actually. So what does this say? I've actually read this before. Fascinating. Spin recovery, love it. Opposite rudder, forward elevator, neutralized controls. Flight into known icing conditions prohibited. Yes, you don't want to do that. Obviously, only being a newbie pilot, I haven't come across a huge number of sort of, extreme conditions or anything, but anyone who's sort of interested in flying or anything like that, the Cessna is a brilliant little plane to actually learn. It's so forgiving, it's so easy as well. It's such a simple plane, really, to sort of to set up, to fly, to maintain, everything pretty much. It is very, very simple. So yeah, I encourage you to really check it out if you're interested in flying, which I think everyone should do at least once in their life. Just going to trim down a little bit. Too much height or anything. It's obviously not the fastest plane in the world, looking around 110 knots, so you're looking around a high hundreds in terms of kilometers an hour, so I think around about 180 to 210 kilometers an hour, so it's obviously a lot faster than a car, and obviously flying straight direction, so air transport is a lot quicker, but obviously it's definitely not a quick plane. It's a trainer plane for a reason. And it was designed that way. It's not meant to be quick. So if we want to get up into anything a little bit sort of further in terms of speed, you're sort of looking at the Cessna 182, which you're sort of looking to get up around the I think it's around the maybe 150, 160, 170 knots. So you're getting quite a bit quicker there. Then you can look at things like the Piper. Is it Comanche, I think, is the model up. So the Cherokee is basically the Cessna sort of competition, and then I think the Comanche is the one up. So that's the Comanche 250, I think, is one of the really good ones. Not made anymore though, so probably difficult to get your hands on, but if you can do, it's a really good little plane. I've actually flown in one of those with one of my instructors, which is quite a lot of fun. Yeah, but I mean, like I mentioned, for a trainee pilot, this is a brilliant little plane. So it's a really good little training plane, and you'll learn a huge amount flying these. So I didn't actually mention, so after you get your private pilot's license, so you get the recreational RPL first, then the PPO, private pilot's license. Once you've got that, you can basically fly as a private person anywhere in Australia with passengers on your own. You can set all your own flight plans, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty much all you need if you want to be just a recreational flyer. If you want to get any sort of endorsements or licenses after that, you can. But that's what a lot of people sort of recreational flyers actually have. That's all they have. That's all you really need. So we're climbing a little bit too much. I'm just going to trim down a little bit, drop some height, come back around the 4,500 mark. And so after the private PPO, so if you want to go further than that, you'll be looking at basically getting into like working as a pilot in some form or another, or if you run your own business, or if you want to look at becoming an airline pilot, or working for one of the regional airlines or something like that. Next step is actually the commercial pilot's license, which is a whole different beast. So it's obviously, as I mentioned, is actually working for a job as a pilot, so it is quite a bit more involved. So I think it's around 150 hours flight time in terms of, and also around about 30 hours piloting command. And then there's like a whole bunch of theory and all this kind of stuff as well. So it's very, very quite involved, quite expensive as well. And then once you get that, you're probably not really get a job with that. You're probably having to get your multi-engine endorsements, flight instructor endorsements, and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's probably the biggest problem is actually becoming a pilot. Unless if you don't go down the military route, like the military is a fantastic route because they train you, and then once you come out of the military, if you only stay in 5-7 years, whatever your obligation is, once you come out, you still have to get your conversions and stuff, but military pilots are in huge demand from airlines because they're so well trained, all this kind of stuff. But if you're a private person and you're not interested in going down the military route, then it's very, very difficult to actually get to a point where you have enough experience and qualifications and stuff to actually get hired by like a major airline. And pay in like regional airlines is pretty not great. I think it's getting better from what I've heard. It's getting a lot better than what it used to be. But it's still not amazing. It's not a huge sort of payday. It's sort of in the regional airlines is where you actually get in the major airlines is where you start getting the big money. But yeah, so basically, I mean, you're looking at, so for anyone who's interested, the recreational pilot's license, you're looking around about $10,000 for that to get that done. The private pilot's license is another $10,000 on top of that. So basically, to get to the point where you can, as a recreational flyer, you can sort of fly around and do what you want. You're looking around about $20,000 out of your own pocket, and then you don't even own a plane. Like you've actually got to buy a plane. So probably looking from anywhere to $80,000 to $250,000 for a really good plane if you're depending on what you want to do and spend and all this kind of stuff. It's great terrain, isn't it? And even like I think the HD Trees from Orbx really does a lot of really great tree placement as well. Fixes a lot of that as well. So very, very impressed, super impressed. Yeah, so that's what you want to do if you want to get to the the top of the recreational level. And then if you go down the commercial route, I mean, I haven't actually looked into it 100%, but from what I've heard, you're probably looking at, if you want to get all three of them, so if you get the commercial, you have to go through the RPL and the private pilot's license as well, the PPL. So if you want to go for commercial and get all three licenses, basically I think you're looking around about from anywhere from like $50,000 to $75,000 just for that, which is huge amounts of money to actually spend, and then like you've got no guarantee of a job or anything like that, because then you have to go through that stuff like I said, like multi-engine endorsements, like air transport license, as well, like flight instructor, and then you have to get like huge amounts of flying hours as well done. So a lot of the major airlines require you to have I think around about 1,500 hours in a jet plane, and like a certain like 300 hours piloting command, so actually being like in command, but not being the second officer, being the first officer. And yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to do. It's very, very difficult to do. So it's a huge impediment, I think, to actually being a pilot. So yeah, so I mean, if you want to just be a recreational pilot, I mean, it's fantastic. It's fine. It's totally what it is. But for anyone who sort of doesn't want to go down that route, it's very difficult to do and it takes a long time. So especially with what I've read, there's actually sort of going to be a bit of a confused driving addons. There's going to be a shortage of pilots over the next sort of 5 to 10 years because like a lot of professions these days, especially like sort of Western developed like places like Australia, you're getting all like the baby boomers are actually retiring, so you're getting huge swaths of pilots actually retiring, and they just haven't got the numbers to replace them because it's very, very difficult to actually get qualified pilots. And like a lot of overseas airlines, especially like sort of the rapidly expanding ones in the Middle East and Asia, are really struggling to hire actually like really good pilots because their training programs aren't up to scratch of what we've got. So if you want to put the time into becoming a pilot and you're happy to go and work somewhere in Asia or the Middle East or something, you can actually get paid enormous money to actually go and do that. Even more if you're sort of an experienced pilot, you can actually show that. I've heard of people getting like $500,000 a year as an experienced airline pilot, actually going over and working for a major airline over there and like getting everything paid for. It's just like incredible amounts of money. But yeah, so anyway, so it's not impossible if you want to do it. It's just going to be a lot of work. So I think we're pretty much running parallel, which is good. Semi-parallel, I think, anyway. It's actually got entry in that way, doesn't it? Alright. We'll see what they say. We'll contact them and see what they say. I actually haven't been on the frequency, so I haven't listened to all that chatter. Alrighty, so Melbourne Centre. We don't want to be on Melbourne Centre. We want to go back to Let me go back to Hobart.
Hobart Tower, Cessna, November 7274 Hotel is 14 miles northeast with Yankee land. Cessna, November 7274 Hotel, Hobart Tower, make left downwind, runway 12, altimeter 3021.
Yeah, so we've got to come back in from the north, so that's right. So we'll swing around, and we'll sort of just make a left turn, a slight left turn here, and get rid of that. Alright, cool. So I might even drop our speed now, our height, and stay around the 4,000 level. Our speed is dropping a lot, so hitting some turbulence. Just going to trim up again. We'll stay around the 4,000 feet mark if we can avoid it. So just going to level out here, and we'll come over this way. So we'll swing around, coming from is that the northish, sort of northwest-ish. And we should get clearance then to actually land, and we'll come in and land, and hopefully I don't completely bungle the landing. The autogen as well, the autogen building, you can actually see the buildings down there.
Hotel Quebec Echo, you are leaving my airspace, frequency change approved.
Yeah, the autogen makes a huge difference as well, I think, in terms of like the realism of the landscape and the building and stuff, and especially once you're flying over cities and stuff. But even like sort of down here, they sort of look like rural towns and stuff as well, don't they? It does make a huge difference. So a little bit low actually. You might even come up a little bit. Just gonna swing up a little bit. There we go.
Mike Sierra, uniform, clear for takeoff. Runway 12, service wind 905 at
some of that turbulence. Although we have to drop our speed, our height at some point, aren't we?
Mike Sierra, uniform.
Alright, no, we'll just leave it. We'll see how we go. Try and stay about level now for the moment if we can. We're at 3,500 feet, should be fine. So we'll swing out of fairway and come in from a fairway away. So we're going to get down to about 1,000 feet for our approach. So we get a nice approach that we don't screw everything up. She's fine. So still dropping. It's probably not too bad really. Let's just try and trim up a little bit slightly. Don't drop too fast. We're going to jump into the GPS here, which is cheating a little bit. We see we're probably doing okay. Probably swing around a little bit to the right a little bit further, so we don't come in too close to the airport. So we'll just swing around this way a little bit. And this is the lazy way to fly, by the way. So we should be doing probably, you know, some of the radio navigation or things like that, but just figure I know the area so well, and it's obviously a simulation. There's no real sort of airline traffic around because I've got it turned right down, so it's not too much to worry about. It's all good. It's quite low level cloud though, isn't it? Which is interesting though, because you actually get quite a lot of low level cloud in Hobart, especially along the river. It's not uncommon in winter to actually get sort of a really low level of cloud or fog that just basically hugs the entire river from start to finish, and you can't see from like, you know, one side of the river to the other. So it's quite a cool thing. Just flying up this way still dropping a little bit of speed, but not a lot, which is good. So I'm quite happy with that. Still seeing around about 105 knots an hour. We'll swing around, and then we should get clearance once we clear. Once we have enough room and start our approach, we should get clearance to come in and land. Yeah, definitely have to get track IR. I've actually got face track, the free version, or the free one. So I have to see if I can get that set up with this. Should be really good. I mean, it's not as good as track IR because it.
Velocity 702 is 17 miles northwest. Inbound ILS runway 12 approach. Velocity 702 Hobart Tower. Continue runway 12. Altimeter 3021. Continue runway 12. Velocity 702.
Yeah, so it's what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying. It's terrible. Anyway.
Virgin 1530, contact ground on 118.1.
I do have the as well the Orbx AI traffic, which is why you're getting a lot of Australian airlines showing here. So like a lot of Virgin and Velocity, you get a lot of Jetstar and Qantas flights in as well, which is quite cool. So it also fixes a lot of the skins, actually gives you the proper skins for all those planes. So swing a little bit out to the right, coming a little bit close in, so that's fine. It's not really dropping speed yet, so we're just going to trim down a little bit. So start dropping, so we're a little bit too high at the moment. So the airport's out to our left, out over there. You can sort of just see it, but yeah, so I'm just going to keep swinging around this way. That's what I was going to say. The Rex 4 makes a huge difference. Like in terms of like the soft clouds and stuff, I think it's just incredible. Like it just adds so much realism to it. Obviously, like I mentioned, as someone who flies fairly regularly these days, it really does an amazing job of getting that sort of that really sort of realistic wispy view, or that soft edged view that sort of clouds have, which are really difficult to sort of reproduce. And you think about it, they're actually not 3D clouds either. They're all 2D clouds, I think, from memory. But they look 3D, which is incredible. So, and coming up through them, it's just, yeah, I've done a very, very cool job. That's what I mean. I think about why FSX is probably my favourite, because the amount of work that people have put into it over the years, and the amount of add-ons and stuff you actually get for it, just out of this world, and just add so much depth and realism to what was already quite a realistic model. So especially the A2A simulations, the plane versions they get, like this Cessna one, like I mentioned already, is just incredible.
Cessna Delta Juliet Golf is type Cessna Caravan IFR Lonnie, ready to come. Cessna Delta Juliet Golf is cleared at Lonnie Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 5,000. Departure frequency is 126.5, squawk 0102. Cessna Delta Juliet Golf cleared to Lonnie Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 5,000. Departure on 126.5, squawk 0102. Cessna Delta Juliet Golf, correct. Contact ground on 118.1.
So they had a planned flight plan that they've launched, which is why we didn't get any of those messages, because we were just on a VFR a visual flight, whereas that was an IFS flight. So yeah, so it means you have to follow the flight plan basically, and they track you, and if you're off it, they basically get on the radio and yell at you. But with us, we just do whatever we want. We just fly around, and we contact them when we need to, rather than the other way around. So we're not too far away. We'll swing around probably another couple of minutes or so, just once we get enough clearance. We're still dropping, which is good, 3,000 feet, so we're dropping at a decent rate now, which is good. Bit under 500 feet a minute, which is a good speed for us. So
Cleared to land, runway 12, velocity 70.
it's a little air charter, little Gippsland, 7,500 feet. Is nice. Alright, so we're at 71 minutes, so an hour and 11, so hopefully this hasn't been too boring. I might split it into 2 episodes actually, so by the time you're watching this you could be watching part 2, or maybe I'll just upload it as well with one thing. I can't really decide yet, we'll see how we go. But yeah, hopefully it's been semi-interesting, semi-information, informative, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully it hasn't been boring, but yeah, it's very, very impressed in the Orbx, which was the entire point of actually checking this out, to actually see how accurate it was and how much more realistic it was than the base version. And like I mentioned, super impressed at it. So probably have to level off here actually, because you see we're coming over some of the mountains here. We don't want to get too low, which we're sort of leveled off a little bit anyway, so that's not too bad, so we'll just leave that. So we're just going to keep coming around this way, probably in for another minute or so, and then we'll swing around, see if we can get clearance straight in. Just double check the GPS. Yeah, so you can see that's where we're going to come in from. The entryway coming in there, and what's the message? Near airspace less than 2 nautical miles, yeah, fine. So we actually probably cut across, there's a few different types of airspace in this area you have to be careful of if you're flying in real life. So probably the only one that we would have crossed would be in this Storm Bay training area. So there's actually a designated training region for obviously training flights. There's a little bit further towards the north, there's a couple of military zones as well, up in Buckland, up in the Midlands. And apart from that, I think the only ones in Tasmania are the Launceston training zone, and also there's another military zone on the far north coast, which you have to be careful of. Military airspace, you have to be very careful about messing with those. But yeah, we obviously haven't really worried about it these today, because it's just a simulator and do what we want. But yes. So how are we going? Not going too bad, I think. So I'm going to start dropping a little bit speed again. And just swing out a little bit further. There we go, see what we're doing. Yeah, so not too far away, so we're just going to swing around a little bit further.
Cessna Delta Juliet Golf, ready to go. Runway 12, IFR to Lonnie. Cessna Delta Juliet Golf, hold short.
So we're getting a little bit pushed over this way as well. Actually, I think that's where the wind's coming from. It's what, around 310, wasn't it? Which would be out from our directly on our right hand side, which is why we're getting pushed out to the left, which is not a bad thing, because we need to come around that way. So we're just going to leave that. Still dropping slowly, which is good. So we might start, once we clear these little mountain ranges here and we start swinging around, we're going to drop quite quickly. It's really not ideal. Would have liked to actually drop a little bit quicker than what we have. Generally around 1,000 feet for our thing, but we'll probably be around nearly 2 once we start, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, we're good. Alrighty, cool. So we may make a left turn very shortly.
Velocity
EG now.
Contact ground on 118.1. Cessna Delta Juliet Golf.
We're going to trim down rather than dropping our speed, although we will drop our engine slightly, and I'm also going to put our mixture back in because we're around about 3,000 feet, so that should help the engine a little bit. Drop down a little bit, so a combination of the trim, might just trim up a little bit, don't drop too quickly. There we go, it's better. So it's decent. So I'm just going to swing around this way. A little bit hard with this cloud cover actually to actually see where we're going, but I think once we clear this little mountain range through here, and we can swing up straight up the valley into the airport. You see there in a little GPS in the corner of my eye, which we're almost coming up to. Yeah, so this should be all open. Yeah, cool. So we're dropping quite quickly. It's not a bad thing. We do need to burn off a lot of speed, a lot of height is more than speed. We can drop speed fairly quickly, but height's a lot more difficult. So we're hitting around 120 knots, a bit under. So a little bit quick, but I don't want to drop our engine too much further. Otherwise, it's going to make it drop a lot more quickly. As I mentioned, we're actually not too far above these. That's why I sort of mentioned I didn't want to drop our height too quickly, because we're going to would have run into some problems otherwise. So we should go swing around now. And start making our way in. Alrighty. I think we have to come across this way a little bit further. Actually, no, we're not. We're just going to swing around. Yeah, no, start swinging this way. Which is where we need to be. Hopefully. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, so there you can see it in the distance, I believe. Once we get settled, we'll just zoom in to make sure we know where we're going. But I'm fairly sure that's where we're going. Yep. It's actually interesting because in real life, a lot of the times you actually enter from the other coast, where I actually said from the east, where we actually mentioned, but from the water side of things, especially for light planes, just a lot. It's just a lot easier for pretty much everyone involved to actually do that. Yeah, that's the. Oh, come around a little bit further. Yeah, it's actually still got a fair way to go, further than I thought, so that's alright. So we'll just have to deal with that. So what we're going to do is actually going to trim up and
Hobart Tower, Merchant 1533 is typed.
Speed up a little bit so we maintain our height.
Merchant 1533 declared at Sydney Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 11,000.
So we're going to sit around the higher ones just so we have enough height.
Squawk 1215. Merchant 1533 cleared to Sydney Airport is filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 11,000. Departure at 126.5, squawk 1215.
Very rough flight, as you see, flying at this low level now, which is fine. Yeah, it's actually got a fair bit further to go than I thought. My inexperience shows through. So I'm pretty sure that little white dot is Cambridge, so we have to come across and then come in from the water, which is actually what I was expecting to see.
Velocity 705, ready to copy IFR clearance to Brisbane. Velocity 705 is cleared at Brisbane Airport as filed.
Don't want to turn that off though, because we're going to need to hear what they say. So
departure frequency is
it's a bit annoying to have all that, but.
Velocity 705 cleared to Brisbane Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain altitude 11,000. Departure on 126.5, squawk 2027. Velocity 705 correct. Contact ground on 118.1.
That's where we started, the mountain up there. It's interesting looking at it from that side of things. There, if you can see, that sort of flat front of the mountain and the flat top of it. It's quite unique, but I've actually sort of got that down really well, which is quite impressive. So it actually looks pretty much exactly like what Mount Wellington looks like from the side, which is actually really, really impressive. So super. I mentioned it multiple times now, but super impressed with the Sp4, the Australia pack. They've done an amazing job. So a little 208 Cessna, which I think they're leaving from the looks of it. Yeah, they're climbing out, so they're leaving. So it's the clearance we got before, I think. Yeah, clear for takeoff. Yep, so they're leaving, which is fine. I don't think there's any planes in our area. I haven't heard about any anyway. Yeah, it's the little auto-gen buildings, just does make a huge difference. Because in the initial FSX, I think they're all flat, so I don't think there's actually all that many auto-gen buildings. So you can see a few cars here and there. I've pretty much got it turned down a fair way because it was a little bit unrealistic, and also does hurt your frame rates, and frame rates aren't amazing as it is, but...
Hobart Tower, Virgin 1533, ready for IFR departure, runway 12. Virgin 1533, clear for takeoff, runway 12, service wind 29er.
So we're going, guys, we can see it right there.
Clear for takeoff, runway 12, Virgin 15.
So we're pretty much lined up now, so hopefully we can just fly in. I'm going to drop our speed now, and also push our nose down. Make sure we start burning off some speed, so we're sitting way too high at the moment. We've got a fair way to go though, but it is a very flat entrance as well, so we can sort of get quite low and just sort of maintain that for a fair way. So you know, it's quite easy. Hopefully we get cleared to run in straight away. Haven't technically done exactly what they wanted, but I figure with such low traffic, there's a plane taking off now, but they should go very quickly. Sound like a Virgin flight, so it'd be a jet plane, so they would get out and climb quite quickly. So hopefully we can just continue flying in, and yeah, so they're leaving now, so they'll be totally fine. They'll be out of our way.
Hold short, runway 12, traffic is Embraer 190 under runway.
Well, there's a couple of planes on the runway, so we may actually have to go around again. So I'm actually going to do, given that, is actually drop our engine right back, trim up a fair way so we don't drop speed too much. So I really want to drop our speed now because we're with two planes on the runway. I don't really want to go around again. Clear to land, awesome, perfect. Alright, so we can bump our speed up again now that we've got clearance to land.
Cleared to land, runway 12, Cessna 74 Hotel.
Perfect. Alrighty, so we're going to start dropping our speed and our height quite quickly now. It's actually weird, we wouldn't often get chance to land a little Cessna at, I suppose it would happen quite regularly, shouldn't say that, but I obviously haven't ever done it, land a Cessna at Hobart International. So as mentioned, it is a lot bigger in real life than it actually is on the game. It's hugely a lot bigger actually. I think actually they're doing a big runway upgrade next year and actually starting full international flights now. Which for a little regional airport basically is quite a big deal. So looking at the lights, a little bit hard to see actually. But I think we're a little bit low maybe still. So what I'm going to do is trim up a little bit. Smooth flight. Come across a little bit as well. Alright, so there's Virgin just departing. So actually they just departed out that way as well now, didn't they? Yeah, they just departed out towards the coast, which is interesting. Just the autopilot.
Contact Melbourne Control at 126.5.
Right, so we're a little bit higher still, I think. No, we're doing alright. Still dropping quite quickly. I think we actually just trimmed down a little bit further. Get our engine back a fair way as well. So according to lights, we're doing okay. So we'll drop our engine right back now because we're coming quite close now. It's got a fair bit of speed to burn off. Don't really want to drop our flaps, although we could do, I guess. Alright, we'll drop them one. So it's going to bring us up, and then it'll drop us down again. So that's actually probably a quite good thing to actually burn off a lot of speed. Yeah, so it's going to, we'll come back down again, so... There we go. So yeah, it's definitely not the most amazing landing in the world, by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to idle right back now. And you can drop quite quickly now. Yeah. No, way too high. Alright. Lesson learned. So just going to basically drop back to idle now. Like it is long runway and Cessna doesn't take long to stop. But yeah. Little Boeing. It's probably laughing at the crappy little Cessna pilot coming in. Alright, so start pulling up. And yeah, so we're going to actually hit the end of the runway almost, so definitely not a great landing, but anyway. And almost touchdown. There we go. A little bit rough. Alrighty, done. Done, guys. Pretty pathetic landing, unfortunately, but everything else wasn't too bad. Alrighty, so I'm just going to sit up here and clog up the runway for a minute. And actually, no, we can come off here, can't we? Oh, that was fine, wasn't it? Duh. Awesome. Alright, cool. Anyway, there we go, guys. Apart from that, hopefully the rest of the flight was okay. The landing was, as I mentioned, not great. But, yeah, everything else was hopefully enjoyed. I hopefully enjoyed our little scenic flight around the place.
Cessna 74 Hotel, contact ground on 118.1. 118.1, Cessna 74 Hotel.
Alright, I'm just going to stop here. Right off the edge of the runway, so it's not very good in terms of reality, but there we go. Cool, done! Alrighty, everyone, hopefully you enjoyed that little flight. Let me know. I'd love to do some more little stuff in FSX. It's quite a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts, suggestions. Let me know if you have any questions about sort of anything, basically Hobart, Tassie, flying, real life flying, FSX, anything like that. More than happy to answer them. And yeah, I hope you've all had a wonderful day. As always, it would be amazing if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video. That would be enormously, enormously appreciated. Alright, everyone, have an amazing day, and I'll see you all soon.